tell us that you can't make a decision unless you do your CEQA review first. So it's that decision that triggered the need to have to do the analysis. So we have this dilemma. Either we do the road improvements that the original conditional use permits called for, in which case now we have this new information saying there's a new significant impact, so we have to do that prior to the town council's issuance of the tree removal permit. So all of that's probably going to take about a year to go through the whole process. We can do that, but that still means you can't do the road improvements until the decision is made to issue the tree removal permit. That's still another decision somebody's going to have to make. You can make it later, but I'm just saying you don't get the road improvements then for a while. Similarly, you don't get the TDM program in a formal way because you can't change the conditional use permit now with TDM plus road improvements until we go back and do this environmental analysis to evaluate the heritage tree. And CEQA, when you think about it, I know it's the assistant city attorney is saying it's kind of a pain to have to deal with it, but we have to remember it's about informing the public and the decision makers about the consequences of our decisions, right? So the reason that we came back before you was because we didn't even know if everybody understood what the consequences were, because at the end of the day, all we were trying to do was solve a problem, avoid the heritage tree loss, mitigate the traffic impacts. It turned out you can avoid the traffic impacts by doing transportation demand management. And the addendum that was included in your packet in July showed there weren't any significant impacts. Actually, conditions were better than what was reported in the EIR. The problem was, in July, when we were all trying to figure out how are we going to figure this out, we hadn't done the environmental analysis to evaluate the impacts of the loss of heritage trees. Now, remember again, this is in the context of a project that's already been approved and the council had already made the decision this is the way to mitigate the impacts caused by the project. So it's not, as much as we would like it to be, it's not a chance to go and solve all of the traffic problems in Atherton and Menlo Park. And that's why I said at the last meeting, we have to think about what is the nexus? What is roughly proportional to the impacts caused by this project? Well, Sacred Heart was basically saying, we're going to take some of our trips off the road so we're not causing the impact. Then we avoid the heritage tree loss issue. Then we're making conditions improved and we don't even necessitate the need for the road improvements. And then we had that discussion in July about, well, why don't we do both? Let's do road improvements and TDM. And I was the one who said, well, no, you can't really do that because that's actually greater than the impact being caused by Sacred Heart schools if they're not even causing an impact by eliminating trips through their TDM program. And you had some very valid concerns about, well, how do we know and what happens in 2 years and how are we going to get some assurances that this is going to be enforceable? And so then town staff came back to you tonight to say one of the things that you could do is maybe beef up the restriction through controlling the enrollment in the future. If that's a concern that you lose your ability to control the trips in the future. But at the end of the day, with TDM, you get a mechanism in place to check that and to create an enforceable scenario where the school's going to be having that hanging over their head, like, because they're going to lose their student enrollment, right? It's going to have to be reduced if it doesn't work. Whereas with the road improvements, you get the mitigation today, and that's the end of it. Assuming that the council even approves the tree removal permit, which, as Lisa Custis-Sanders had indicated, it was unlikely that staff would even recommend that approval. So now I'm the one rambling, but at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is avoid a problem from happening. And I think for your consideration, it's again comes back to this either or situation. Do you keep the CUP in place today? In which case we still have to go back and do more environmental analysis before we can get the tree removal permit. Or do you change the conditions to allow for TDM to be the mechanism for mitigating and avoiding the traffic impacts. And if you decide to do that, you get the monitoring, the reporting, and all of the things that go along with that to get assurances that the trips are reduced. We couldn't think of any other ideas for how to avoid a traffic impact and save some trees, but that was really the goal.
Any questions? Thank you. Anyone else? Sandy?
I don't know. We've had,
This would be a first then if you didn't have anything to
I
say.
know, and I really don't, other than to say thank you to everybody. I guess the only thing is to go back to what a few people have alluded to, and that is your observations over the last 2 days, Commissioner Lively, are strictly, yesterday was our first day, and today is our second. And I think it's a bit of an anomaly because, as, again, someone mentioned, every mom wants to take their child to school.
Got that too.
And it'll last another week. And then I think that things will calm down. But are there any other questions that I can answer?
I don't know.
I have a question for the traffic guy. What is the number of vehicles per day that you can hang your hat on that enter and leave the campus?
Vehicles or trips?
The, whatever it is.
So we talked about it in terms of,
Can we just so if this is, are we going back to the 6,000 question?
Well, in the mitigation phraseology here, it talks about 6,000 vehicles per day.
Okay, so
And-
that is and I believe, and please correct me, I believe that is a 24-hour period. Okay?
Right.
And so
Is that the right number?
we believe it is, because if you go back to the 4 trips a day, right, I know when you and I spoke earlier, and we talked about that 2.2, I certainly understand how you arrived at that number, but in fact, probably 75% of the enrollment is driven to school. Only juniors and seniors drive. Everybody else has to be driven, preschool through sophomores. Starting second semester, sophomores will start to drive, so that trip, the trips will go down a little bit. The other thing is, we have Oakwood. We have a retirement center right smack in the middle of our campus. They have their own,
Drive.
no, but they have employees. They have employees around the clock. Those people are counted in and out. They have doctors who come. You know, so there's other things. It's not just our students.
But I'm asking, what is the number, the words that we are being asked to review say 6,000 vehicles per day.
to be absolutely correct, it would be 6,000 trips per day.
In
which would
other
be
words, 3,000 vehicles.
3,000 in, 3,000 out.
Yeah, because the way it's worded
See,
here,
that's a whole
Coordination
different
center.
ballgame than 6,000.
yeah, the wording is a little ambiguous. I mean, this one paragraph says a total of 6,000 vehicles were counted entering and exiting Sacred Heart campus over a 24-hour period on a typical school day.
Yeah.
So that's probably where the confusion's coming.
Yeah, and another place
I
that
mean, that's
says
exactly what it's
6,000
worded, so.
vehicles access the campus.
It could be the same car making 3,000 trips.
Right. Which we,
Well, in fact, it's a fact that the 6,000 cars were seen, and it was a mom bringing a child in, dropping her off, and then leaving, and then in the afternoon, coming in and leaving. So it's in and out, it's in and out.
yeah, the net effect is that I don't really care whether it's 200 vehicles making 600 trips.
Exactly.
Back and forth. It's 6,000 trips, 3,000 in and 3,000 out over the course of a 24-hour period.
But not 6,000 vehicles.
Not 6,000 vehicles, and I don't know if it's my report or the staff report or what you're referring to, but it
This is
should
the
have,
staff report here.
and so it should absolutely be trips per day.
Trips.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anytime that occurs, especially
enrollment penalty provision, it should say 6,000 vehicle trips per day. So that's a good clarification.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, not 6,000 vehicle trips.
Well, it's, well,
6,000
vehicle
trips.
trip is a term that's used in traffic engineering. It's the same as round trips, but it's the number of trips. It's what you can count. You can count a trip. You can't actually count distinctly how many different vehicles there are.
Well,
So
to me,
it's
a
trip.
round trip
Right.
is coming and going,
Right.
and a trip is going, you could interpret it as one way. Perhaps we need to have a definition, so it's clear.
3,000 round trips?
I don't know if I can help with this, because I had to get my head around this for our own traffic counts. But it's how many times there's a car on, in our case, on Valparaiso. A car comes in, it's on Valparaiso. It drops the kid off, it leaves, it's on Valparaiso again. It does that again in the afternoon, mom, dad comes to pick the child up, that's on Valparaiso. It leaves, it's on Valparaiso. Now, that's just the student. We have faculty, staff going in and out, and the kids go to lunch. And you talked about 2.2 trips per day or something like that. If you double that, because it's now in and out, you're up to 5. You divide 6,000 by 5, how many students you have? You're right at about 1,000 kids. You're in the realm of
Right.
rationale. I mean, you get, once you understand that it's actually a car on Valparaiso, in our case.
Car on the city street.
On a city street.
I know,
I have
it's
one
trips,
street,
it's
yeah.
trips, it's the number of trips.
Yeah.
And that's what has a traffic
So
effect.
it's almost a doubling or a quadrupling of anything that you would logically and intuitively think about a car coming in. That's 4 trips for every kid that comes in.
Minimally, yeah.
Yeah, minimum.
Thank you.
Hopefully that helps, because it's something hard to get your head around until you
I
really
think we
figure out.
optimized everybody's 3 minutes.
Anyone else in the audience want to speak on this issue?
3 minutes.
Last call. All right, close the public hearing. Commissioners' comments?
I'm ready to go. Start with you.
Yeah, I would just first of all, thank again Keith and Doug and David and Mark for your enlightenment, and especially Keith and Doug living so close to the school. Really appreciate your comments and your assessment of what's going on. I'm the last guy that wants to get rid of any trees, and I think more asphalt is a bad thing. So on the surface, anything we can do to mitigate traffic without creating more asphalt or losing trees. And I also believe if you build it, they will come eventually, which was addressed by the audience as well. I think David said something that was really valuable in establishing a culture in these TDMs taking time. I think there's a lot of merit in saying that, and changing habits and changing culture and getting people to buy into a program. And when you have a transitional student body, as they come in, and the student body changes over years, as they come in, that's all they know. So it gets easier and easier to indoctrinate them into the program. And I think it can build over time. So I think all of those were totally valuable comments and just great input that at least enlightened me in a big way. So I just wanted to say that for the record. I think that the TDM is better than taking down trees and putting down more asphalt. It's just, we have to make sure that it's the right program and that, you know, it's as effective as it can be.
Mary Beth?
I guess that I feel that we need to define these vehicle trips if we're going to talk about TDM, and make sure that we can understand it, because it's, I don't think it's written properly at this point. And if we can do that, then depending upon the definition, then I can support the TDM mechanism.
Well, this is a good example for me of why you have public hearings, because it does clear up some of the grayness of the issues if you get the right people talking, and tonight everyone was the right person talking. I think that one of the comments made was it's, the current proposal as approved is not the right thing to do, and I think that's the baseline that I come from, is that no matter how the mitigation comes out on cutting down trees, it's not gonna be a good plan. And I do believe that the idea that we create more lanes, you allow more cars. So I'm with the discussion tonight, and with the framing tonight, and with the clarification that we're talking about, I'm fully supporting the proposal up by staff. And I'm glad we went through this because one, there's all this definitional stuff that we all have to get on the same page about. And two, I'm glad we're dealing with a partner that gets it and is committed to make it work, and a neighborhood who, you know, comes up sometime and says this is the wrong thing to do, and then 2 years later says the right things are happening. That's the way neighbors are supposed to be. It's like, here's what I think, and you guys have reacted to it, and that's why as long as I've been on planning commissions, I always like to remember that this is a neighborhood thing, and if we treat each other like good neighbors, it'll work out. So I'm fully ready to make the proposal as staff has outlined here. Though I have one quick question for staff, if that's all right.
Sure.
On this. It says on item 2 on the formal approving recommendation, there's a word that I question, and I would ask if it makes sense to modify it. It says making a finding based on substantial evidence the alternative intersection improvements are no longer necessary. I would have a tendency to say no longer appropriate or something like that. Necessary seemed like it was the word seemed like a funny word. So if that word holds up, I'm fine with it. But it just seemed like I couldn't necessarily say that I had the findings to make it necessary. But no longer appropriate means that we have a better plan to me, or something along those lines. Okay?
Yeah,
All right,
that's fine.
so does that make, do you understand what I was doing with that? Because I couldn't make a finding necessary on that, but I could say, based on the evidence we have, it's no longer appropriate to look at.
Okay, I'll make my comment.
Yeah.
No problem.
All right.
Say again?
We enthusiastic, yes.
My comments are these. I still am reluctant to give up the opportunity in the future to develop those intersections, even though it may be a Band-Aid approach. I think the better approach is, even though both schools may be using a TDM, is to everyone get together, the town of Atherton, the town of Menlo Park, the schools, and everybody else that lives adjacent to Valparaiso, and find a way to not eliminate, but ameliorate some of the traffic jams that are in there now. In the morning and the afternoon, those residents that live there are handicapped. They cannot get in or out. There's no question of that. And I've seen it many times. I come down Crane and try and get onto Valparaiso. It's impossible in the afternoon to do that. So there's got to be a better way than what we're doing right now. This may be a way to help, and I would reluctantly support this proposition, but I think we've got to continue to do some work together to solve the problem on Valparaiso, because it's a bad one, and we just cannot shut our eyes to it and go on about our business.
All right, I'm prepared to make a motion. Do you want 4 separate motions, or do you want one motion with 4 bullets?
Well,
One,
Um,
4.
have we got a proposal for defining 6,000 vehicles per day?
We need to have 6,000 trips, and I think then you want a definition of what a trip is, correct? And
You can word it any way you want, as long as it's understood.
yeah, and I would rely on the traffic consultant for that definition of what a trip is, so that we have consistency moving forward with what the experts would call that.
So that would be a modification to the amendment on the enrollment penalty provision to change from vehicles to trips, correct?
Correct, and is there any other words that we need to define that? A trip is one vehicle
trip
entering campus, one vehicle leaving?
A trip is defined, I'll see if I can give it to you short first.
Thank you.
A trip is defined as a vehicle entering or leaving the campus, with the intent that there'll be a maximum of 6,000 trips entering and exiting over. a
Can we
24-hour
say
period.
6,000 one-way vehicle trips per day?
No, that wouldn't be correct, actually. One way has a different connotation in that.
It does, because it says only the in and out,
Good try with that.
don't count as one trip, they only stay there.
Can we say
Total of
3,000
6,000
round trips?
It's 3,000 round trips,
I don't know.
or 6,000 total trips in and out of the campus over a 24-hour period.
6,000 trips counting entries and exits.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes, that's good.
All right.
Okay, I need
Defined
one
as-
definition.
Defined as vehicle
Entry or exit.
entry or exit of the campus.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I have this vision of getting close to the limit and all of a sudden cars start staying in the campus to make sure that when the measurement period.
Okay. We need to think about,
So then you add trips also.
ultimately, the school may elect to reduce its enrollment by amount equal to one student for each 5.26 vehicles per day.
Trips.
That would be
Is
trips
it
again.
trips?
Trips.
I think everywhere it says everything.
Don't use the word vehicle, just don't use the word
Word
vehicle.
replace the word vehicle with
Vehicle
trips.
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 Yeah.
Okay,
Good, good.
all right, so are we ready for a motion?
No, I gotta read it all.
Okay, so I'll read the way I'm thinking of it. The last paragraph would say, the enrollment penalty provision would say,
Replace all vehicles.
yeah, as a result of the annual monitoring determining that the school is not compliant with the 6,000 trips per day standard, the standard cited in subsection A above, in a two-way successive years for 2014, the school shall be required to reduce the enrollment to a maximum of 1,082 students by the fall of three calendar years later. For example, noncompliance in the spring of 2016 will require the school to reduce maximum enrollment by 1,082 to 1,082 by the start of the school year beginning in the fall of 2019. Should the school be required to reduce its enrollment level, subsections A, B, and C above are all no longer apply. Alternatively, the school may elect to reduce its enrollment by an amount equal to one student for each 5.26 trips per day that the annual number of trips exceed the 6,000 trips per day standard by the fall 3 calendar year. For example, if the annual monitoring report in 2016 shows that the number of school-generated trips is 6,000 trips per day, then in the spring of 2016, the school would be required to reduce the enrollment by 11 students. Should the school elect to this alternative, subsections A, B, and C above shall remain in force. That's the wording that I would.
And there's, I'm sorry, a back page.
Yeah.
You did such a great job.
And the back page would be the situation. Right. Additionally, should the school be required to reduce its enrollment by at least 25% of the total required reduction in the school year beginning in the fall of the calendar year following the triggering event, 40% of the remaining balance of the required reduction in the school year after that, and the balance of reduction of the third year. For example, if the spring 2016 is determined that the school must reduce its enrollment by to 1,082, at least 25% of the total reduction will occur in the school year beginning in 2017. At least 40% of the remaining balance. I felt like the end of a commercial. Balance in the school year beginning in 2018 and a balance in the school year beginning in 2019. If notwithstanding, oh, that sounds like a legal word, the exceedance, that's definitely a legal involved. In the first year of the noncompliance of the 6,000 trips per day standard, the second year of the annual monitoring indicates that the school is once again in compliance with the 6,000 trips per day standard, and the school may resume its enrollment prior to the first year triggering event.
And we will add,
And
the
we will-
trip is defined
Right.
as.
Exactly.
Vehicle entering or exiting a campus.
Perfect.
Okay,
Okay.
now, one other question. What is A, B, and C?
Oh, so that's when we go back to the conditional use permit certificate. On the first one, it's going to be 16A is implement the transportation demand program to limit the number of vehicle trips. And B is undertake the annual monitoring during the life of the project to assess compliance with this condition. C, should the annual monitoring result that the number of daily trips has increased above 6,000 on a year-to-year basis, they shall employ additional TDM measures. And then your new D is what was just read into the record. And that same condition is repeated in the other certificate.
So don't we have to correct A, B, A and B
To
To
trips.
to trips.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what was C again, what we read? So that.
No, C is they need to do more TDM, and then at the point you get to D is the 2 consecutive years.
Okay,
So
so,
on a year-to-year basis,
so
they
what we
visit.
read is D.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so then in A and C will replace vehicles with trips. And then we've added also, maker of the motion agrees, in item A, excuse me, in item B, undertake annual monitoring during the life of the project.
Yes.
Thank you. And that's both conditions.
So, I move
Is that the-
I move that the planning commission recommend the city council make the findings outlined in the staff report, take the following actions, and approve the following permits with the conditions listed in the draft approval certificate. 1, approve and consider the EIR addendum along with the final EIR prior to making the decision on the project. 2, make a finding based on the substantial evidence that alternative A intersection improvements are no longer appropriate to mitigate the significant impact, and a better alternative exists in the form of an enhanced TDM program. 3, we're approving that the 2 draft amended conditional use permit certificate, lower middle school reconstruction project and practice gym project, and that to leave the existing intersection improvements condition and add a new condition requiring the TDM program and annual monitoring. So that's a previous item we did before you were here.
Mhm.
All right, and 4, we're adding the condition that the total enrollment penalty provision to both amended condition use permit, the lower middle school reconstructed project and project gym project, as stated in the staff report, and the enrollment penalty provision would be replaced condition 16D, as I just read a moment ago into the record, in the lower middle school certificate, and conditional 15D in the practice gym certificate.
What do we want to add after annual monitoring for the life of the program?
Where's the other one?
Under 2.
Under 2, under a TDM, enhanced TDM program with annual monitoring, with annual monitoring.
We have,
With annual monitoring for the life of the program.
yeah, it's the amended conditions. Right.
All right, with an annual monitoring for the life of for the monitoring for the life of the
The
project,
project.
of the project.
That's right.
This does set the record for the longest motion I've ever made.
I will second the motion.
That was short. Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Democracy works.
I'm hesitant over not having a clean copy on it. So there are lots of places where it says vehicle, so. Let's make sure we get it right.
Yes, thank you.
All right, then I'll go.
4 ayes and no nos. Motion's carried. Yeah, then we have appeals with council going there anyway.
Yeah, it's going there.
Thanks again for your input. That was terrific.
Thank you all for sticking with us on this. Thank you very much. Have a good to see you.
Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you everyone for my speaker.
If you can find her, wake him up.
Oh.
See, you got a book report out there, send it in. Thank you.
So if you could head out to make sure that they're not going over the Labor Day weekend, it would be really very nice to do. So, I know, you did a good job.
Tell you after the meeting what
I was born, I was born in the so I got that in the DNA.
I think your comments at the end were right on, as far as, the initiative that needs to be looked at.
I don't see any solutions to it.
That's a good thing I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, you got some.
Well, I think the key thing that you said was getting mental part involved as well as the two schools with Atherton. I mean, it's gotta be a collaborative effort.
No.
That's just everybody has to stop. Just hit the reset button, that's the only way out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a half-time culture.
It takes time. It's a long time.
That's something.
One solution may be to
Change the timing.
break the country up,
That's why.
you know, and allow the LOI
Yes, he is.
Come on,
Yeah,
let's get on with this meeting. Come on.
I can get out of
Let's
that.
go.
All right, let's see.
I'm on the
You have a
east
couple
side.
more items.
Control this group.
Oh, you're interrupting my.
Oh,
They started to give us book report.
Yeah.
All right, we're on, what, item 8, I guess.
Okay, conditional use permit for Menlo Atherton High. May we have the staff?
Thank you. This next item before you is the request for a conditional use permit to allow the replacement of 3 Sprint panel antennas, 6 RRUs, and 2 equipment cabinets at an existing cell site at Menlo Atherton High School. The site is zoned PFS, Public Facilities and Schools. Proposed cell project will replace existing panels with 3 new panels, and 3 existing equipment cabinets will be replaced with 2 cabinets. The cell site is located in the middle of campus between existing classroom buildings. The equipment will be installed on a monopole approximately 172 feet from Middlefield Road. The existing monopole, approved in 2001, will be utilized for the project. And if you'll notice at the top, there are some radio antennas. Those are part of the high school's radio station. The applicant has submitted photo simulations, which I left at your desk today, showing the proposed and existing views. The replacement antennas will be located 1 per sector for a total of 3 antennas, and the RRUs will be located below those, 2 per sector for a total of 6. The antennas will be placed at center, on center at approximately 57 feet high and are 6 feet in height. The equipment will be located below the antennas on the ground. And the 2 cabinets are approximately 6 feet tall, a little bit less, and located in the same approximate area as the current equipment. A radio frequency study was also prepared for the project, and EBI Consulting determined the exposure levels from the communications equipment would comply with FCC standards and not pose a hazard. The study indicates that the maximum occupational limits level, which is the level for people who actually are exposed to the emissions as part of their employment, and around the higher levels. The limit for that is 5 megawatts per centimeter squared. The study found that the emissions were 0.01 megawatts or 0.52% of the limit. For the general public exposure limit, the maximum allowable is a lot less than that. It's 1 megawatt per centimeter squared. Again, the result of 0.01 megawatt is about 2.6% of the general public limit. Therefore, under the Federal Communications Act of 1996, the town cannot base any decisions made on the proposal on the environmental effects of the RF emissions. We have also added a condition requiring the applicant to verify compliance with this report once the antennas are actually installed. Based on the existing location and existing use of the pole, its distance from the surrounding property lines, and the results of the study, staff is supportive of the proposal. I'm available for any questions, and the applicant is also here as well. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the staff?
I have one question. Somewhere in the report, I thought I read that the amperage is going to increase from 100 amps to 200 amps. Did I see that in there someplace?
There is an increase, and I'm not, can I direct that to the applicant?
Hi, my name is Sarah Hu. I am a representative of Sprint. I think that was actually a miswording. It's already at 200 amps, so we're not going to be increasing.
So it's the same?
It's going to remain at 200. And that's also in the project description on the plans.
So it is the same?
It is the same.
Are there any other questions?
The school's totally informed with all of the details of,
Yes, we've worked really closely with the school on the design, so they're completely informed. They'll be tied in with the process and the building process as well.
and the other thing, and this is just me kind of nitpicking, but I saw the size of the 2 new boxes at the base of the, were like 6 feet high, 3 feet wide. Was there any dimensions for the 3 that are being removed?
You know, I believe
I was just
the
curious.
I think the 3 that are going to be removed are about the same height and size.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it would be like a total reduction of what's covering the space down there,
Well,
by
it's gonna
reducing
go
it
from 3 to 2,
Yeah.
so,
In the map, in the big map, it shows some pictures, and it looks a little less cluttered, but a little bit
Right.
higher, taller box.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it looks a little higher in the
they
drawing
are on
maps.
platform,
Yeah, they're on the platform.
yeah.
In the pictures that you provided with us, the boxes that are up high, have, looks like they've increased, although I can't really tell because by the profile.
Yeah, so the boxes that we're adding, are you referring to the RUs?
Yeah,
The new
antennas on the
antennas.
poles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the RUs are about 2 feet in height and 1 foot in width, so.
And they're replacing what, in height and width?
No, those are new installations that we're doing.
So currently there is nothing at the top, near the top of the pole, and you're adding these boxes.
Exactly.
The top of the pole remains as is.
The same height.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With the microwave antennas on top.
yeah, right. But I just wondered, I couldn't tell by the profile.
Are there any other questions?
A question for
Staff?
staff?
Staff's coming back?
Yeah.
And,
The question I had is, all right, so, no one's here from the school, obviously, so I just wanna make sure how we know that the school is comfortable with this.
They're required to sign the original application. I also met on site with their communications director from the school district, who walked me through the whole project. And then Sprint's in the process of doing their lease agreement, which we can also require as a condition before installation to have that on record if you'd like.
And do we know if there's been any communication to parents about this at all? As part of the discussion?
No, I'm
Not
not aware of.
So this is one of those things that nobody's gonna care about until they see it. And then it'll be all the questions that you've answered for us up front. So, one of the things I would ask us to do is to make sure that we're doing something to, if this is going, if we do go ahead, that we have some kind of communication process to parents so that they understand what's going on with it. Because all the concerns about the environmental, 20% of the parents are gonna have that concern, right? And anybody in the neighborhood that all of a sudden sees an antenna up there that's concerned about this issue is gonna have that concern. So somehow there needs to be something set up in advance of, and by the way, just so you know, just like we got here. I don't know how to do that, and I don't know if we would recommend it to the school or where it goes, but it's something that will come back to us if we approve without that being in place.
That's a great point. I mean, that's why I asked about the school, just because
Right.
they're gonna be concerned about